Elena stood at the train station, her white wedding dress getting dirty from the dusty platform. She looked like a ghost that everyone was trying to avoid. People walked past her quickly, some staring, some pretending not to see her at all. A few teenagers even took out their phones to click pictures, whispering and giggling among themselves. Just 5 hours ago, she had been getting ready in her childhood bedroom, her hands shaking with excitement as she put on this very dress. Her mother had tears in her eyes. Her father kept checking his watch, eager to walk his daughter down the aisle. Everything was perfect. Everything was ready, but then her phone buzzed. One message. Just one single message that destroyed everything. "I can't do this. I'm sorry. Don't try to find me." At first, she thought it was a joke. Maybe her fiancé was just nervous. Maybe he was playing some stupid prank. But when she called him, his phone was switched off. She called again. And again, nothing. Her cousin ran to his apartment, empty. His clothes were gone. His car was gone. He was gone. The wedding hall was decorated with white roses and fairy lights. 200 guests were already seated, waiting. The priest was ready. The cake was ready. Everything was ready except the groom. Elena remembered standing in that bridal room, still wearing her dress, while her mother cried and her father made angry phone calls. Her bridesmaids didn't know what to say. They just stood there looking at her with pity in their eyes, that look, that terrible look of pity. The guests started leaving one by one. Some offered sympathetic hugs. Others whispered behind her back. She heard fragments of their conversations. "I always thought he was odd. Poor girl. What will she do now? This is so embarrassing, embarrassing." Yes, that was the word. She felt embarrassed, humiliated, and completely broken. She couldn't stay there anymore. She couldn't face all those people looking at her like she was some tragic character in a sad movie. So she grabbed her purse, pushed past her family, and ran. She just ran. She took a taxi to the train station because she didn't know where else to go. The taxi driver kept glancing at her in the mirror, clearly curious but too polite to ask. When she paid him, he said, "Whatever happened, miss? It'll get better." She wanted to believe him, but she couldn't. Now she sat on this cold metal bench, surrounded by the noise of trains and announcements and rushing people. Her feet hurt in these stupid fancy shoes. Her makeup was ruined from crying. Her hair, which had taken 2 hours to style, was falling apart. The apartment she lived in was actually his apartment. All her things were there, but she couldn't go back. Not yet, maybe not ever. Her parents kept calling her phone, but she couldn't answer. What would she even say to them? 3 years? She had spent 3 years with him. 3 years of planning a future, of believing in promises, of thinking she knew someone. How could she have been so wrong? Were there signs she missed? Was she so blind? An old woman sat down next to her on the bench. She didn't say anything at first, just opened a small packet of biscuits and offered one to Elena. Elena shook her head, but the woman insisted. "Eat something, child. Whatever trouble you're in, an empty stomach only makes it worse." Elena took the biscuit just to be polite. The old woman nodded with satisfaction. "Man trouble?" she asked simply. Elena let out a sound that was half laugh, half sob. "Is it that obvious?" "The white dress gave it away," the woman said with a gentle smile. "But also your eyes. I've seen that look before, lost and hurt and wondering how life got so messy so quickly." They sat in silence for a moment. The old woman finished her biscuits, brushed the crumbs off her lap, and stood up slowly. "Listen to me carefully, dear. Right now, you think this is the end of your story. But sometimes the worst days lead us to the best chapters of our lives. You just can't see it yet." Before Elena could respond, the woman walked away, disappearing into the crowd like she was never there at all. Elena looked down at her hands. Her engagement ring was still on her finger. She twisted it slowly, remembering the day he proposed. It was at a beach during sunset. He got down on one knee and said all the right things. She said yes without hesitation. Now that ring felt heavy. Wrong. She pulled it off and held it in her palm, staring at it like it was evidence of her own foolishness. The station announcer's voice echoed overhead, calling out platform numbers and departure times. Life was moving forward for everyone else. Trains were leaving. People were going home to their families. But Elena was stuck, frozen in this moment of complete uncertainty. She had no plan, no idea what to do next. Her job was at a company where her ex also worked. Her friends were mostly mutual friends. Her whole life had been built around a future that no longer existed. A little girl walked past holding her father's hand, staring at Elena with wide, curious eyes. The father gently turned the child's head away and whispered something, probably telling her not to stare at the sad lady in the wedding dress. Elena checked her phone. 43 missed calls. Dozens of messages. Her mother. "Where are you? Please come home." Her father. "We need to talk. Come back." Her best friend. "I'm so worried. Just let me know you're safe," but she couldn't go back. Not yet. She needed time to think, to breathe, to figure out how to face the world again. The evening was turning into night. The station was still busy, but the crowd was different now. Tired workers heading home, college students with heavy backpacks, a group of friends laughing about something. Elena felt completely alone in the middle of all these people. She wondered if this was what rock bottom felt like, sitting on a train station bench in a ruined wedding dress, with nowhere to go and no idea how to start over. She closed her eyes and took a deep breath. The old woman's words echoed in her mind. Sometimes the worst days lead us to the best chapters of our lives. She wanted to believe that. She really did. But right now, sitting here in the ruins of her dreams, it was hard to imagine anything good coming from this disaster. What Elena didn't know was that her life was about to change in the most unexpected way possible. Just a few feet away, a desperate father was struggling with his 2 young children, and their paths were about to cross in a way that would change everything. David Chen was having the worst week of his life, and that was saying something considering the past 2 years he'd been through. His briefcase kept slipping from his shoulder while he tried to hold his daughter Lily's hand and keep track of his son Lucas at the same time. "Daddy, I'm thirsty," Lily whined, pulling at his jacket. "Just 5 more minutes, sweetheart. We'll get juice when we get home," he promised, though he wasn't even sure if there was any juice left in the fridge. He'd forgotten to go grocery shopping. Again. Lucas, his 4-year-old son, suddenly started crying. "My car. I lost my red car." "What? Where did you have it?" David asked, trying to keep the frustration out of his voice. He set down his briefcase and knelt to check Lucas's pockets. "I don't know," Lucas wailed louder. "It's gone. I want my car." People were staring now. David could feel their eyes on him. A single father struggling with 2 young kids at a train station. He probably looked like he had no idea what he was doing. And honestly, he didn't. Okay, we'll find it. Don't cry, buddy," David said, hugging his son even though Lucas was getting snot all over his work shirt. He didn't care about the shirt. He just wanted his kids to be okay. The red toy car turned up in David's briefcase somehow. Lucas must have put it there earlier. Crisis solved, but David felt exhausted. It was only 6 in the evening and he felt like he'd already lived an entire day. This morning started with another rejection. The 5th nanny agency this month had called to say they couldn't help him. Same reason as always. The twins were too energetic. That was the polite way of saying his kids were too much trouble for anyone to handle. But they weren't bad kids. They were just 4 years old. 4-year-olds are supposed to be energetic and loud and messy. They were supposed to ask a million questions and lose their toys and want juice at inconvenient times. That was normal. The problem wasn't his kids. The problem was that David was trying to do everything alone, and he was failing. 2 years ago, his wife had passed away from cancer. It happened so fast. One day she was complaining about being tired, and 6 months later she was gone. The twins barely remembered her now, and that broke David's heart in ways he couldn't even explain. His mother had been a blessing. She moved in with them and took care of the children while David went to work. She cooked meals, did laundry, played with the kids, and basically kept their lives from falling apart completely. But 3 months ago, his mother had a stroke. She survived, thank God, but she couldn't take care of herself anymore, let alone 2 active 4-year-olds. She was now living with David's sister in another city, getting the medical care she needed. Since then, David's life had become a nightmare of juggling work, childcare, cooking, cleaning, and trying to be both mother and father to his children. His job was suffering badly. He was an architect, and he'd been working on the biggest project of his career, a commercial complex that could make his reputation and secure his family's future. But he'd missed 3 important meetings in the past month because of childcare emergencies. His boss was losing patience. Just yesterday, his boss had called him into the office and said very clearly, "David, I understand your situation is difficult, but this project cannot wait for your personal problems to be solved. Either figure it out or we'll have to give this project to someone else. Someone else." Years of work, about to be handed to someone else because he couldn't find a reliable nanny. He'd tried everything, regular nannies, au pairs, daycare centers. Nothing worked. The twins were too attached to him. They cried when he left. They acted out with strangers. Lily had actually bitten one nanny who'd tried to put her in timeout. David was mortified, but he also understood. His kids were scared. They'd already lost their mother. Now their grandmother was gone too. They were clinging to him because he was all they had left, but he was drowning. He couldn't do this alone anymore. "Daddy, that lady is wearing a princess dress," Lily said suddenly, pointing across the platform. David looked up and saw her, a young woman sitting alone on a bench wearing a white wedding dress. Even from a distance, he could see she'd been crying. Her shoulders were hunched and she looked utterly defeated. "Don't point." "Lily, it's not polite," he said gently, but he couldn't stop looking at the woman himself. Something about her posture reminded him of himself. That same exhausted, lost, I don't know what to do anymore energy that he felt every single day. Lucas tugged at his pants. "Why is she sad, Daddy?" "I don't know, buddy. Sometimes grown-ups have sad days too." David told himself to mind his own business. He had enough problems without getting involved in a stranger's drama. But his feet started walking toward her anyway, almost like they had a mind of their own. Maybe it was because he recognized that look of desperation. Maybe it was because he was so tired of struggling alone that he wanted to talk to someone. Anyone who looked like they understood what it felt like to hit rock bottom. Or maybe, somewhere in the back of his exhausted mind, a crazy idea was already forming. As he got closer, the twins pressed against his legs, suddenly shy. The woman looked up and David could see her red, swollen eyes. She'd been crying for a while. "I'm sorry to bother you," David started, his voice gentle. "Are you okay? Do you need help?" The woman let out a sound that might have been a laugh or a sob. "Does it look like I'm okay?" she asked, but there was no anger in her voice, just tired honesty. David sat down on the bench, keeping a respectful distance. The twins climbed onto his lap, staring at the woman with open curiosity. "Fair point," he said. "Stupid question. Let me try again. I'm David. These are my kids, Lily and Lucas. And you look like you're having the kind of day where talking to a complete stranger might actually help." The woman studied him for a moment, probably trying to figure out if he was some kind of creep. But she must have seen something trustworthy in his face, or maybe she was just too tired to care because she nodded. "Elena," she said simply, "and yes, I'm having the absolute worst day of my life. Want to talk about it?" David offered. "I'm a good listener, and I promise my kids won't judge you. They're too young to understand anything anyway." Elena looked at the two small faces staring at her, and something in her expression softened slightly. And so she told him. The whole story. The wedding that never happened. The text message. The humiliation. The fear of going back to her life. David listened without interrupting, and as she talked, his mind started working. This woman needed an escape. A fresh start. A purpose. And he needed help. Desperate help. It was absolutely insane. Completely crazy. The kind of idea that only came to people who were out of options. But as Elena finished her story and wiped her tears, David took a deep breath and asked the question that would change both of their lives forever. "I know this is going to sound completely crazy.
And you can say no and I'll never bother you again.
But what if you didn't have to go back to your old life? What if I offered you a different option?" Elena looked at him confused. "What do you mean?" David glanced down at his kids, then back at her. "Marry me instead." Elena stared at David like he had just spoken in a foreign language. For a moment, she wondered if she'd heard him wrong. Maybe the stress of the day had finally broken her brain and she was hallucinating. "I'm sorry, what?" she asked, blinking. David ran his hand through his hair, looking almost as shocked as she felt. Like he couldn't believe those words had actually come out of his mouth. "I know how it sounds. Believe me, I know. But just hear me out for a minute, please." The little girl, Lily, was playing with the lace on Elena's dress, completely oblivious to the insane conversation happening above her head. The boy Lucas had found a piece of candy in his pocket and was focused entirely on unwrapping it. "You just told me your whole life fell apart today," David continued, speaking quickly like he needed to get all the words out before he lost his nerve. "You can't go back to your apartment because it's his place. You can't face your family right now. Your job is complicated because he works there too. You're stuck, right?" Elena nodded slowly. All of that was true, okay. So here's my situation. I'm a single father. My wife passed away 2 years ago. My mother was helping me with the kids, but she had a stroke and can't anymore. I've been trying to find childcare for months. Nothing works. These two, he gestured at the twins, are wonderful kids, but they're a handful. Every nanny quits. Every agency rejects us. And my career's about to go down the drain because I can't balance everything. I'm sorry, Elena said, and she meant it. But I still don't understand how that leads to you proposing marriage to a complete stranger. David took a breath. Because we could help each other. Think about it practically. You need a place to stay. A fresh start, something to give your life purpose right now. I need help with my children and my home so I don't lose my job. We could make an arrangement. An arrangement? Elena repeated, the word feeling strange in her mouth. A marriage of convenience, David explained. Completely practical. No romantic expectations at all. You would have your own bedroom, your own space, your own life. But you'd live with us, help with the kids, and in return you'd have financial security, a home, and time to figure out what you want to do next. Elena looked at him like he was crazy. Because he was crazy. This was the most ridiculous thing she'd ever heard. You don't even know me, she said. I could be a terrible person. I could be dangerous. Are you? David asked simply. What? No. But that's not the point. You can't just, look. David interrupted gently. I'm a good judge of character. I have to be for my kid's safety. And I can tell you're a good person who's had something terrible happen to her. You're not dangerous. You're hurt and lost and looking for a way forward. Am I wrong? Elena opened her mouth to argue, then closed it. He wasn't wrong. Lily tugged on David's sleeve.
Daddy, is the princess coming home with us?
David smiled at his daughter. Maybe, sweetie. We're talking about it. I hope she does, Lily said confidently. She's pretty and she smells nice. Despite everything, Elena felt a small smile tug at her lips. Kids had a way of saying exactly what they thought. Can I ask you something? Elena said. Why me? Why not just keep looking for a regular nanny? David sighed. Because regular nannies don't work. I've tried. The twins need stability. They need someone who's actually going to stay, not someone who'll quit after 2 weeks because Lucas threw spaghetti at the wall, or Lily decided to cut her own hair at 3 a.m. They need someone who'll actually care about them, not just someone doing a job. And you think I would care about them? You just met me. I saw the way you looked at them, David said quietly. When Lily touched your dress, you didn't pull away or get annoyed. When Lucas was crying earlier, you looked concerned. You have kind eyes. And right now, I think you need to feel needed just as much as my kids need someone to care about them. Elena felt tears forming again. He was right, and that was the scary part. She did need to feel needed. She did need purpose. And these 2 small children looking at her with curious, innocent eyes made something in her chest feel warm for the first time all day. This is insane, she whispered. Completely insane, David agreed. But sometimes insane solutions are the only ones that work. I don't know anything about taking care of children. Neither did I when they were born. You learn as you go. What if it doesn't work? What if we hate each other? Then we get divorced, David said simply. I'll even put it in writing. 1-year trial. If at any point you're unhappy, we end the arrangement and I'll make sure you get a settlement that gives you time to get back on your feet properly. No hard feelings, no drama. Elena's mind was racing. This was crazy. Absolutely crazy. You didn't just marry a stranger because you had a bad day. That's not how real life worked. But then again, her real life had exploded spectacularly just a few hours ago. Maybe crazy was exactly what she needed. I don't love you, she said bluntly. I don't even know you. I don't love you either, David replied just as bluntly. This isn't about love. This is about 2 people in difficult situations helping each other out. Think of it as roommates who happen to be legally married. Roommates, Elena repeated, a slightly hysterical laugh escaping. Roommates with children. Exactly. Lucas looked up at Elena with his big brown eyes. Are you going to be our new mommy? The word hit Elena like a physical blow. Mommy. These children had lost their mother. They were looking for someone to fill that horrible empty space in their lives. Elena started, then stopped. I don't know, sweetheart. Our old mommy is in heaven, Lily explained matter-of-factly. Daddy said she's watching us from there. But she can't make us breakfast anymore and Daddy burns the toast. Hey, David protested, but he was smiling slightly. I'm getting better at toast. You burned it this morning. Lily pointed out. Elena found herself laughing, really laughing, for the first time that day. There was something absurdly normal about this conversation, even though nothing about this situation was normal at all. "Can I have some time to think about it?" she asked. "Of course," David said. He pulled out his phone. "Give me your number. You can take a few days, think it over. If you decide yes, call me. If you decide I'm a complete lunatic and you never want to hear from me again, that's okay too." They exchanged numbers. David stood up, gathering his briefcase and his children. "For what it's worth," he said, "I really hope you call. I think you'd be good for these two. And I think they might be good for you too." As David walked away with the twins, Lily turned back and waved enthusiastically. "Bye, Princess Lady." Elena waved back, feeling dazed. Had that really just happened? Had a complete stranger actually just proposed marriage at a train station? She looked down at her phone, at David's number saved in her contacts. She should delete it. She should forget this entire bizarre conversation and go back to her real life, as messy as it was. But instead, she found herself thinking about those two little faces, about Lily's comment that David burned the toast, about Lucas's tears over a lost toy car, about David's exhausted eyes that looked so much like her own. Maybe she was crazy. Maybe this was the worst idea in the history of ideas. But as Elena sat there in her ruined wedding dress with nowhere to go and nothing to lose, she realized something important. Sometimes the craziest ideas turned out to be the right ones. She picked up her phone and, before she could talk herself out of it, she typed a message to David. "Okay, let's do it. Let's get married." She hit send before she could change her mind, her heart pounding. 3 minutes later, her phone buzzed with his reply. "Really? You're sure?" Elena took a deep breath and typed back. "No, I'm not sure at all, but I'm doing it anyway." Another buzz. "Welcome to the family, Elena. I'll pick you up tomorrow morning. We have a lot to figure out." Elena looked down at her wedding dress one more time. This morning she'd put it on expecting to marry one man and start one kind of life. Now, she was going to marry a completely different man and start a completely different life. It was insane. But maybe, just maybe, it was also exactly what both of them needed. The next morning, Elena woke up in a cheap hotel room, wondering if yesterday had been some kind of fever dream. But no, David's text messages were still on her phone, and they'd agreed to meet at a coffee shop at 10 o'clock to discuss the details. She showed up 15 minutes early, wearing jeans and a simple shirt she'd bought from a store last night. The wedding dress was stuffed in a trash bin somewhere. She never wanted to see it again. David arrived exactly on time, without the twins this time. He looked more put together than yesterday, wearing a clean button-down shirt and carrying a folder. "You actually came," he said, looking relieved as he sat down across from her. "I almost didn't," Elena admitted. "I must have picked up my phone to cancel about 50 times last night." "But you didn't. That means something." They ordered coffee, and for a moment, neither of them spoke. The whole situation felt surreal in the daylight. Yesterday at that train station in the evening chaos, everything had seemed possible. Now, sitting in a bright coffee shop, Elena was acutely aware of how crazy this was. "So," David said, opening his folder, "I actually wrote some things down last night. Ground rules, expectations, that kind of thing. I figured we should be clear about everything before we do this." Elena was impressed despite herself. "You really thought this through." "I have to. I have 2 kids depending on me making smart decisions. This might seem impulsive, but I need to make sure it works." He slid a piece of paper across the table. "These are my thoughts. Tell me what you think, and we can adjust anything." Elena read through the list, her eyebrows raising higher with each point. The list included things like separate bedrooms, shared household responsibilities. Elena would help with the children, but David would still be their primary parent. Financial arrangements, including a monthly allowance for Elena, and access to household accounts, no romantic expectations or obligations, and a trial period of 1 year before making any permanent decisions. "This reads like a business contract," Elena said. "Because that's what it is," David replied. "A business partnership. We're both getting something we need from this arrangement. I want to make sure we're both protected and comfortable." Elena appreciated his honesty, even if it felt strange to discuss marriage like a job contract. "And what happens after a year?" "After a year, we evaluate. If it's working well and we both want to continue, we stay married. If either of us is unhappy, we divorce. Simple as that. No blame, no drama. And if we divorce, you mentioned a settlement? David nodded. I'll make sure you have enough money to get your own place and support yourself for at least 6 months, while you figure out your next steps. I'm not going to leave you worse off than you are now. That wouldn't be fair. Elena studied him carefully. Why are you being so generous? Most people wouldn't offer that much to a stranger. Because I'm asking you to turn your entire life upside down to help me with mine, David said simply. That deserves fair compensation. And honestly, if you're going to take care of my kids, you're worth every penny. I don't know anything about children, Elena reminded him. What do you want to know? So David told her. He talked about the twins' routines, their likes and dislikes, their fears, and their funny little quirks. Lily was the bold one, always ready to try new things, but she had nightmares sometimes and needed someone to sit with her until she fell back asleep. Lucas was quieter, more sensitive, and he had a slight speech delay they were working on with a therapist. They see a therapist? Elena asked. Once a week. To help them process losing their mom. It's been hard on them, obviously. David's voice was heavy with emotion. They were only 2 when she died. They don't really remember her, which somehow makes it both better and worse. What was she like? Elena asked softly. David smiled, but it was a sad smile. She was wonderful. Patient, funny, creative. She would have been an amazing mother if she'd had more time. He paused. I'm not looking for someone to replace her. Nobody could. But the twins need a maternal figure in their lives. Someone stable and caring. I think you could be that person. You have a lot of faith in someone you just met. Call it instinct. Or desperation. Maybe both. He took a sip of his coffee. So what about you? What do you need from this arrangement besides a place to stay? Elena thought about it. Time, I guess. Time to figure out who I am without him. Time to heal. Time to decide what I actually want to do with my life instead of just following someone else's plan. That's fair. This arrangement gives you that time. No pressure, no rush. You can take as long as you need. And we're really not going to. I mean, this is completely platonic. Elena felt her face heat up. This was awkward to discuss, but it needed to be clear. Completely platonic, David confirmed. Not looking embarrassed at all. Separate bedrooms, separate lives. We're co-parents and roommates, nothing more, unless... He hesitated. Unless what? Unless somewhere down the line we both feel differently. But that would have to be mutual and natural. No expectations, no pressure, agreed? Agreed, Elena said, feeling relieved. They spent the next hour going over more details. David's house had 4 bedrooms, so Elena would have her own space. She would help with morning routines and evening routines with the kids, but David would handle bath time and bedtime stories. They would share cooking and cleaning responsibilities. Elena could get a job if she wanted, or she could focus on the household and the children. What about your family? Elena asked. What are you going to tell them? David grimaced. That's complicated. My sister already thinks I'm losing my mind. I'll tell them the truth, I guess. That we met, we connected, and we decided to get married quickly. They don't need to know all the details. And my family? Same thing. Tell them whatever you're comfortable with. This is a real marriage legally, so it's not like we're lying. Elena nodded, though she knew her parents were going to have a million questions. They'd been devastated about the canceled wedding yesterday. Now she was going to tell them she was married to someone else. They'd think she'd had a breakdown. Maybe she had. When do you want to do this? Elena asked. The actual wedding, I mean. As soon as possible. We can go to the courthouse tomorrow if you want. Get the legal stuff done, then start the real arrangement. Tomorrow. Elena felt her heart racing. This was moving so fast. Too fast, but what was she going to do instead? Go back to her old apartment and face her ex's things everywhere. Go back to her job and deal with the gossip and the pity. Move back in with her parents as a failed almost bride. At least this gave her something different. Something new. A chance to feel useful instead of pathetic. Okay, she said. Tomorrow. Let's do it. David reached across the table and shook her hand like they were closing a business deal. Which, in a way, they were. Welcome to the team, Elena, he said with a slight smile. As Elena walked out of that coffee shop, she felt a strange mix of terror and excitement. She'd just agreed to marry a man she barely knew, to help raise children she'd just met, to start a life that was completely different from anything she'd ever imagined. It was crazy. Absolutely crazy. But somehow it also felt like the first real choice she'd made in a long time. Not something that was happening to her, but something she was actively choosing to do. That night, she finally called her parents. The conversation went about as well as expected. Her mother cried. Her father demanded to meet David immediately. Her younger brother asked if she'd completely lost her mind. Maybe I have, Elena admitted. But I'm doing this anyway. I need you to trust me. Trust you? Her mother wailed. You're marrying a stranger. I'm starting over, Elena corrected. And this is how I need to do it. In the end, her family reluctantly agreed to meet David before the courthouse wedding. It was the least she could do, Elena figured. Let them see that he was a real person, not some criminal or con artist. The meeting was awkward, but went better than expected. David was polite and respectful, and when he brought the twins, Elena's mother immediately softened. It was hard to stay angry when two adorable 4-year-olds were calling you Grandma, hopefully. The next afternoon, Elena and David stood in a courthouse with just their immediate families present. Elena wore a simple blue dress. David wore a suit. The twins wore matching outfits and thought the whole thing was very exciting. The judge read through the ceremony quickly and efficiently. No romance, no poetry, just legal words that bound two strangers together. Do you, David, take Elena to be your lawfully wedded wife? I do. Do you, Elena, take David to be your lawfully wedded husband? Elena looked at David's face, then down at the two small children holding his hands. She thought about the year ahead, about the chance to start fresh, about the possibility that maybe this crazy plan might actually work. I do. By the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife, no kiss. They'd agreed on that. Just a handshake and a shared look that said, well, here we go. As they walked out of the courthouse as Mr. and Mrs. Chen, Elena couldn't help but laugh at the absurdity of it all. Yesterday, she was a rejected bride with no future. Today, she was a married woman with 2 instant children and a husband who was essentially her business partner. Life was weird, but at least it wasn't boring. Elena's first morning in David's house started at 5:30 when she heard crying from down the hall. She jolted awake, confused for a moment about where she was. Then she remembered. She was married now. She lived here. And those were her children crying. Well, not technically her children, but sort of her children. This whole situation was still confusing. She pulled on a robe and rushed to the twins' room. Lucas was sitting up in bed, tears streaming down his face, while Lily tried to comfort him in her own 4-year-old way. It's okay, Lucas, the monsters aren't real, Lily was saying, patting her brother's arm. They are real. I saw one, Lucas sobbed. Elena stood in the doorway, unsure what to do. She'd never handled a child's nightmare before. But then Lucas looked at her with those big, scared eyes, and something in her just took over. Hey, sweetie, she said softly, walking over and sitting on the edge of his bed. Tell me about this monster. It was big and scary and had red eyes, Lucas whispered, clutching his stuffed bear. Red eyes. That's interesting. Elena pretended to think very seriously. You know what? I happen to know that monsters with red eyes are actually very scared of something. What? Lucas asked, his crying slowing down. They're terrified of. Elena looked around the room and spotted a toy sword. Magic swords wielded by brave knights, and you know what else? They're also very scared of people who eat chocolate chip pancakes for breakfast. Lily's eyes lit up. Can we have chocolate chip pancakes? Elena had no idea if David even had the ingredients for pancakes, but she nodded anyway. Absolutely, but first, we need to make sure this room is monster-proof. Can you two help me check? Under the bed and in the closet? The twins enthusiastically helped her check every corner of the room, declaring it monster-free. By the time they were done, Lucas had stopped crying completely and was giggling at Lily's dramatic monster-fighting moves. David appeared in the doorway, looking worried. Everything okay? I heard crying. Nightmare, Elena explained. But we've handled it. Now I apparently owe them chocolate chip pancakes. David smiled, looking relieved and impressed. There's a box of pancake mix in the pantry, and I think we have chocolate chips somewhere. An hour later, Elena stood in David's kitchen, covered in flour, with 2 giggling children sitting at the counter. The pancakes were a bit lumpy and she may have added too many chocolate chips, but the twins were eating them like they were the best thing they'd ever tasted. These are so good, Lily declared, syrup all over her face. David came downstairs dressed for work, his tie not quite straight. Elena had the urge to fix it but stopped herself. That seemed too wife-like for their arrangement. You made pancakes, David said, looking at the scene with something like wonder in his eyes. I tried. They're edible, at least. They're better than edible. There. David paused, his expression becoming distant. She used to make chocolate chip pancakes on weekends. There was a moment of heavy silence. Elena realized he was talking about his late wife. She'd stepped into a routine that probably brought back memories. I'm sorry, Elena said quietly. I didn't mean to. No, it's okay. It's good. David smiled, though his eyes were sad. The kids need happy memories too, not just sadness. Thank you. The first few weeks continued in that strange, awkward way. Elena learned the twins' schedules, their favorite foods, their moods. She learned that Lily hated wearing dresses despite loving princess stories, and that Lucas needed his teddy bear for any car ride longer than 5 minutes. She also learned about David. He was organized almost to a fault, with labeled containers in the pantry and color-coded calendars on the fridge. He hummed when he was thinking hard about something. He made terrible coffee but didn't seem to realize it. He worked late most, nights catching up on the projects he'd fallen behind on. David learned about Elena too. She talked to herself when she was cooking. She was terrible at folding fitted sheets and would eventually just stuff them in the closet. She read bedtime stories with different voices for each character, making the twins giggle. She cried during sad movies but always tried to hide it. They existed in the same space but in separate lives, like roommates who happened to be raising children together. How's it going? David asked one evening after the twins were in bed. They were sitting in the living room, Elena reading a book and David working on his laptop. Good, I think. The kids are amazing. They love you, you know. Lily told me yesterday that you're her best friend. Elena felt warmth spread through her chest. Really? Really? And Lucas has started sleeping through the night more often. I think having you here makes him feel more secure. I'm glad I can help, Elena said, and she meant it. She'd been here 3 weeks now, and despite how weird the situation was, she was starting to feel useful, needed, like she had a purpose. But it was also lonely. David was kind but distant. They talked about the kids, about groceries, about schedules. They didn't talk about feelings or fears or dreams. They were partners, but not friends. And Elena found herself missing having someone to really talk to. One afternoon, while the twins were at their therapy session, Elena met her best friend Rachel for coffee. It was the first time they'd seen each other since the canceled wedding. So let me get this straight, Rachel said, stirring her coffee slowly. You married a random guy from a train station and now you're living with him and his kids? When you say it like that, it sounds insane. Elena, it is insane. I know, but it's working. The kids are great. David is respectful. I have a home and a purpose. It's not traditional, but it's not bad. Rachel looked at her carefully. Are you happy? Elena thought about it. I'm not unhappy. That's something, right? That's not the same as being happy. No, Elena admitted. But it's better than where I was a month ago, sitting at that train station with nowhere to go. Rachel reached across the table and squeezed her hand. I just want to make sure you're not running from one bad situation into another one. I'm not. This is different. David and I have an agreement, clear boundaries, no false expectations. And what happens when one of you wants more than the agreement? Elena shook her head. That won't happen. We're not like that. But even as she said it, she wondered if it was true. That night, she walked in on David playing guitar for the twins before bed. She'd never heard him play before. He had a nice voice, soft and gentle, singing some old folk song about stars and dreams. The twins were mesmerized, Lily swaying slightly and Lucas clutching his teddy bear. David looked up and saw Elena in the doorway. For a moment their eyes met, and something passed between them. Something warm and comfortable and almost intimate. Then David looked away, finishing the song, and the moment was gone. Later, Elena lay in her bed alone, staring at the ceiling. Down the hall, she could hear David moving around in his own room. She thought about how strange this all was. They were married, but they lived like polite strangers. They were raising children together, but they barely knew each other. Was Rachel right? Was this just another way of running from her problems? Or was this actually the beginning of something good? Elena didn't have the answers. All she knew was that when Lucas had hugged her goodnight and whispered, "I love you, Elena," her heart had felt full for the first time in months. Maybe that was enough. Maybe that was all this needed to be. But deep down, a small part of her wondered if maybe eventually it could become something more. She pushed the thought away and closed her eyes, willing herself to sleep. Downstairs, David was thinking similar thoughts. He stood in the kitchen making his terrible coffee and thought about how Elena had fit so naturally into their lives. How the house felt warmer with her in it. How the twins smiled more. How he found himself looking forward to coming home instead of dreading the chaos. She was beautiful, yes, but it was more than that. She was kind and patient and genuine. She made his children laugh. She made terrible jokes at breakfast. She hummed while doing dishes. And David found himself wanting to know more about her, wanting to talk to her about things that had nothing to do with the kids or schedules, wanting to be her friend, not just her business partner. But that wasn't the deal. They'd agreed. Professional, practical, no complications. David poured his coffee down the sink and went to bed, telling himself that what he was feeling was just gratitude. Just gratitude, nothing more. But as he lay in the dark, he wasn't entirely convinced. 3 months into their arrangement, something shifted. It started small. David came home early one Thursday afternoon, which was unusual. He normally worked until 7, but his meeting had been canceled and he'd decided to surprise the kids. What he found when he walked through the door made him stop in his tracks. Elena was dancing in the living room with the twins. Music was playing from her phone, something upbeat and silly, and all 3 of them were jumping around like crazy people. Lily was spinning in circles. Lucas was doing some kind of robot dance. And Elena was laughing, really laughing, her hair messy and her face bright with joy. She looked so alive. So free, so different from the broken woman he'd met at the train station. "Daddy." Lily spotted him and ran over. "Elena is teaching us the wiggle dance." "The wiggle dance?" David asked, setting down his briefcase. "It's a very technical dance," Elena said, pretending to be serious. "It requires years of training. Or, just wiggling around like you don't care what anyone thinks." "Show me," David said, surprising himself. Elena's eyes widened. "Really? Really? Teach me the wiggle dance," so she did. And for 10 minutes, David forgot about work and stress and responsibilities and just danced like an idiot with his kids and his wife. They wiggled and jumped and laughed until they all collapsed on the couch. "Out of breath, that was fun," David said, grinning wider than he had in months. "Yeah," Elena agreed, her hand accidentally resting on his arm. It really was. Their eyes met. And for just a moment, David forgot they were just business partners. For just a moment, she was just a beautiful woman who made his house feel like a home. Then Lucas climbed on his lap, breaking the spell. "Daddy, can we have pizza for dinner?" "Sure, buddy. Pizza sounds perfect." After that day, things started changing in small ways. David would come home and actually talk to Elena about his day. Not just about the kids. Elena would ask his opinion on things, not just inform him of decisions she'd made. They started watching movies together after the twins went to bed, sitting on the same couch sharing popcorn. One night, during a particularly funny scene, Elena laughed so hard she leaned against David's shoulder. She didn't immediately pull away, and David didn't want her to. "Sorry," she said after a moment, sitting up straight again. "It's okay," David replied, and he meant it. The walls they'd carefully built between them were starting to crack. It happened again during a rainy Saturday. The twins were napping, and David found Elena in the kitchen, attempting to bake cookies from scratch. "How's it going?" he asked, leaning against the counter. "I think I'm terrible at this," Elena admitted, looking at the lumpy dough. "Nothing looks like the recipe picture. Let me see." David moved beside her, close enough that their arms almost touched. He looked at the recipe, then at the dough. "You forgot the baking soda." "Oh no. Is that important?" "Pretty important, yeah," Elena groaned. I'm a disaster in the kitchen. Hey, you make great pancakes. And your spaghetti is fantastic. So you're not good at baking. Nobody's perfect at everything. What are you not good at? Elena asked, genuinely curious. David thought about it. Coffee. I make terrible coffee, apparently. Elena laughed. I noticed, but I didn't want to say anything. See? We all have our weaknesses. They stood there, side by side, fixing the cookie dough together, and it felt natural. Easy. Like they'd been doing this for years instead of months. David? Elena said softly. Yeah? Thanks for all of this. I know I came into your life during a really crazy time, but you've been nothing but kind to me. I appreciate it. You don't have to thank me. You've been amazing with the kids. You've made this house feel warm again. I should be thanking you. Elena looked up at him, and David realized how close they were standing. Close enough that he could see the golden flecks in her brown eyes. Close enough that if he just leaned down a little, the timer beeped, making them both jump apart. That's for something, Elena stammered, her cheeks pink. Right, yeah, I have some work to do upstairs. David practically fled from the kitchen, his heart pounding. What was he thinking? They had an agreement. No romance. No complications. But the problem was he was starting to feel things he'd agreed not to feel. It wasn't just him. Elena was struggling too. She'd catch herself watching David play with the twins, noticing how gentle he was with them, how patient. She'd see him come home exhausted from work but still make time to read bedtime stories. She'd watch him fix things around the house, help with homework, kiss scraped knees better. He was a good man, a good father. And she was starting to see him as more than just her business partner. One evening, after the twins were asleep, they sat together going through photo albums. David was showing Elena pictures of the kids when they were babies. This was Lucas's first birthday, David said, pointing to a photo of a cake-covered toddler. He shoved his whole face in the cake. Elena laughed. And Lily? Lily refused to touch the cake. She didn't like getting messy back then. Funny how they've switched now. There was a photo of David's late wife in the album. She was beautiful, smiling at the camera while holding newborn twins. That's her, David said quietly. That's my wife. Was my wife. Elena studied the photo. She was beautiful. She was. Inside and out. David touched the photo gently. I miss her. But I'm starting to realize that life doesn't stop because someone's gone. I thought I was done with happiness after she died. I thought I'd just exist for the kids. But lately, he trailed off, not finishing the sentence. But lately what? Elena prompted softly. David looked at her. Lately I felt happy again. Really happy. And it feels weird to admit that. It shouldn't feel weird. You deserve to be happy. So do you. Are you happy, I mean? Elena thought about it. Yes, I didn't expect to be, but I am. The kids are wonderful. This life is different from what I planned, but it's good. Really good. Just good? David asked, something hopeful in his voice. Maybe more than good, Elena admitted. They were sitting close on the couch now, the photo album forgotten between them. The air felt charged, full of unspoken words and feelings neither of them were quite ready to voice. Elena, David started. But then Lily called from upstairs. Elena, I need water. The moment shattered. Elena jumped up. I'll go. As she headed upstairs, David sat back, running his hands through his hair. He needed to be careful. They had an agreement. They had rules. Catching feelings wasn't part of the plan, but the heart doesn't follow plans. A few days later, David's sister visited with her family. She pulled David aside while Elena was playing with all the kids in the backyard. She's amazing with them, his sister said, watching Elena through the window. She is. And how are things between you two? What do you mean? His sister gave him a knowing look. David, I've known you your whole life. I can see the way you look at her. That's not how someone looks at a business partner. We have an arrangement, David protested weakly. Arrangements change. Feelings develop. That's called being human. She touched his arm gently. I loved your wife. She was wonderful. But she's gone, David. And it's okay to move forward. It's okay to feel something for someone new. It's complicated, love always is. But that doesn't mean it's wrong. Love. Was that what this was? David watched Elena through the window, watching her throw a ball for the kids, her laughter carrying through the glass. Maybe it was. That night, after his sister's family left, David found himself standing outside Elena's bedroom door. He could hear her moving around inside, getting ready for bed. He raised his hand to knock. He wanted to talk to her, to tell her that maybe their arrangement wasn't working anymore. Not because it was bad, but because he wanted something more. But he lowered his hand again. What if she didn't feel the same way? What if he ruined everything by admitting his feelings? The twins were happy. The house was stable. Was it worth risking all of that? He went to his own room instead, leaving the words unsaid. Down the hall, Elena sat on her bed, hugging her knees. She'd heard David's footsteps stop outside her door. For a moment she'd hoped he would knock, hoped he would come in and tell her that he felt what she was feeling. But his footsteps had moved away. And Elena was left wondering if she was alone in her feelings, or if David was just as scared as she was. The walls they'd built were cracking, but neither of them was quite ready to tear them down completely. Not yet. 6 months into her new life, Elena's past showed up at the front door. She was making lunch for the twins when the doorbell rang. Lucas ran to answer it before Elena could stop him. When she heard his confused little voice say, "Who are you?" her stomach dropped. She walked to the door and froze. There he was, her ex-fiancé, the man who'd left her at the altar, the man who'd destroyed her life with a single text message. "Elena," he said, and his voice was exactly as she remembered. "We need to talk. Lucas, honey, go finish your puzzle, okay?" Elena said, her voice surprisingly steady. Once the boy was out of earshot, she stepped onto the porch and closed the door behind her. "What are you doing here? How did you even find me? Your friend Rachel told me where you were." "Elena, I made a mistake. A huge mistake." He looked terrible, actually. His hair was messy, his clothes wrinkled. "I've been miserable without you." "Good," Elena said coldly. "You should be. I know I hurt you. I know what I did was unforgivable. But I was scared. I panicked. Marriage is such a big step, and you just what? Decided to destroy me on what was supposed to be the happiest day of my life? You couldn't have talked to me about your fears before the actual wedding day?" I know. I was a coward." He stepped closer. "But I'm here now. I'm ready now. We can start over. He stopped, noticing her ring finger. "You're wearing a wedding ring." "Yes." His face went pale. "You're married?" "To who? When? How long after?" His expression turned angry. "Were you cheating on me? Is that why you were so quick to move on?" Elena felt fury rise in her chest. "Are you seriously accusing me of cheating? You left me at the altar. You ran away without even having the courage to face me. You destroyed 3 years of my life with a text message? So you just jumped into marriage with someone else? That fast? Who is he?" "That's none of your business." "It is my business. You were supposed to marry me." "No, I was supposed to marry someone who loved me enough to show up. You're not that person." The door opened behind Elena. David stood there, concern on his face. He must have heard the shouting. "Everything okay out here?" Her ex stared at David, then at Elena, then back at David. "This is him. This is who you married?" "I'm David," David said calmly, moving to stand beside Elena. His hand found hers and he squeezed it gently. "And you are?" "I'm the man she was supposed to marry before you stole her away." "I didn't steal anyone," David said, his voice still calm but with an edge of steel. "And I think you need to leave. Not until I talk to Elena properly. You've said your piece." "Now go! Elena, please," her ex begged, ignoring David entirely. "Just give me a chance. Let me explain everything. I can fix this. We can be together again." Elena felt overwhelmed. All the pain and humiliation from that day came flooding back. The wedding dress, the train station, the feeling of being completely lost and broken. Part of her, a very small part, wondered if she'd made her decision too hastily. She'd married David out of desperation. Was that fair to either of them? "I need some air," she said suddenly, pulling her hand from David's. "I need to think." She walked past both men, grabbed her car keys and left. She just drove with no destination in mind, tears streaming down her face. She ended up at a park, sitting on a bench watching children play on the swings, children who reminded her of Lily and Lucas. She'd gotten so attached to them. They called her Elena Mama now, a sweet combination that made her heart melt every time. And David. Complicated, wonderful David, who made terrible coffee and burned toast but loved his children so fiercely, who'd given her a home when she had nothing, who made her laugh and made her feel safe and made her feel loved even though they'd never said those words. Her phone rang. It was her best friend Rachel. Please tell me you didn't give him my address, Elena said as soon as she answered. I'm so sorry.
He came to my office and said he needed closure.
He said he just wanted to apologize properly. I didn't think he'd actually show up at your house. Are you okay? I don't know, Elena admitted. Rachel, what if I made a mistake? What if I ran from one situation straight into another one without thinking it through? Do you love David? Rachel asked directly. The question hung in the air. Did she? Could she? They'd started this as a business arrangement. No feelings. No complications, but somewhere along the way everything had changed. I think I do, Elena whispered. I think I really do. But I don't know if he feels the same way. And seeing my ex just brought back all this doubt and confusion. Elena, listen to me. That man left you when you needed him most. David caught you when you were falling. There's a big difference. Don't confuse your past with your present. After hanging up, Elena sat there for another hour thinking. Finally, she drove home, ready to face whatever came next. David was waiting in the living room, pacing. The twins were upstairs, probably napping. Are you okay? He asked as soon as she walked in. I don't know, maybe. Where did he go? I told him if he didn't leave, I'd call the police. He left. David ran a hand through his hair. Elena, if you want to go back to him, I'll understand. We had an agreement. 1 year, and then we could walk away if either of us wanted to. I won't hold you to... Do you want me to go? Elena interrupted. What? No, of course not. But if you... Because I don't want to leave, Elena said, her voice shaking. I don't want to go back to him. I don't want this to be just a business arrangement anymore. David, But the emotions of the day crashed over her, and suddenly she was crying. Really crying. All the stress and confusion and fear poured out. David crossed the room in 3 steps and pulled her into his arms. She buried her face in his chest, and he just held her, one hand stroking her hair gently. It's okay, he murmured. You're okay. I've got you. They stood like that for a long time, Elena crying and David holding her steady. Finally, when her tears slowed, he led her to the couch and sat down beside her. I need to tell you something, David said quietly, and I should have told you weeks ago, but I was scared. What? This arrangement we made, this business partnership thing, it stopped feeling like business to me a long time ago. He took her hand. Elena, you've become so important to me. Not just because you're amazing with the kids, but because of who you are. You make me laugh. You make me want to come home early from work. You make this house feel warm and alive. David, let me finish, please. He took a deep breath. I know I said no romantic expectations. I know we agreed to keep this professional. But I can't anymore. I have feelings for you. Real feelings. And seeing you upset today, seeing that guy at our door trying to get you back, I realized something. I don't want to lose you. Not because of our agreement, but because He paused, looking into her eyes. Because I'm falling in love with you? Elena's breath caught. Really? Really? And I understand if you don't feel the same way. I understand if this is too complicated, or if you need time, or if you... Elena kissed him. It was impulsive and probably not the most elegant first kiss. But it was real and honest and full of all the feelings she'd been trying to ignore for months. When they broke apart, David was staring at her in surprise. I love you too, Elena said, laughing and crying at the same time. I've been falling for you for months and trying to pretend I wasn't, because I thought you just saw this as a business deal. But David, you're not a business deal to me. You're the man who caught me on my worst day and showed me that life could still be good. You're the man who makes terrible coffee and plays guitar for his kids and works so hard to give them a good life. You're the man I want to be with. Really be with. David cupped her face in his hands, his thumbs wiping away her tears. You're sure? Because once we cross this line, there's no going back to the way things were. I don't want to go back. I want to move forward. With you, with the twins, as a real family. This time David kissed her. Properly. Thoroughly. Like he'd been wanting to do it for months, which Elena realized he probably had been. When they finally broke apart, both of them were smiling like idiots. The twins are going to be so confused, Elena said. One day we're just roommates, the next we're actually acting like a married couple. I think they'll adapt, David said with a laugh. Lily's been asking me when I was going to marry Elena for real for the past month. Smart kid. She gets it from me. Elena laughed and leaned against him, feeling lighter than she had in years. Her ex showing up had been scary and confusing, but it had also forced her and David to finally be honest about their feelings. "What are we going to tell people?" Elena asked. "We got married for practical reasons, but now we're actually in love?" "That's a weird story. Who cares?" David said, kissing the top of her head. "It's our story, and I happen to think it's perfect." Upstairs, neither of them knew that Lily was peeking through the stair railing, watching them cuddle on the couch. She grinned and ran back to her room to tell her brother. Lucas, Daddy and Elena are kissing. We're going to be a real family now." Lucas looked up from his toy cars, his face breaking into a huge smile. Finally, their family was complete. The morning after their confession, Elena woke up feeling different, lighter, happier. She rolled over and smiled at the memory of last night. She and David had stayed up talking for hours after the twins went to bed, actually talking like they'd never allowed themselves to before, about feelings and fears and the future, about everything they'd been holding back. But she knew there was still one thing she needed to do. "I need to meet him," Elena told David over breakfast while the twins ate their cereal. "My ex, I need to have a proper conversation and close that chapter completely." David tensed. "Are you sure?" "I'm sure. Not because I have any doubt about us, but because I need to do this for me. I need to tell him clearly that I've moved on, that I'm happy, that he can't just show up and expect me to drop everything. Do you want me to come with you?" Elena thought about it. "No, this is something I need to do alone, but thank you for offering." That afternoon, Elena met her ex at a quiet cafe. He looked hopeful when he saw her, which made what she had to say even more important. "Thanks for meeting me," he started. "Elena, I've been thinking—" "No," Elena interrupted gently but firmly. "Let me talk first, please." He nodded, looking nervous. Elena took a breath. "6 months ago, you broke my heart. You humiliated me in front of everyone we knew. You made me feel like I wasn't enough, like I was the problem. I spent that entire day wondering what I did wrong, why I wasn't worth showing up for. Elena, you didn't do anything wrong. It was all me. I know that now. But it took me a long time to understand it. And you know what? As terrible as that day was, it was also the best thing that could have happened to me." He looked confused. "What? If you had shown up, I would have married you. I would have spent my life with someone who clearly wasn't ready. Someone who ran away when things got real. Instead, that awful day led me to something incredible." Elena smiled, thinking about David and the twins. "I found a real family. I found someone who shows up every single day, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. I found 2 beautiful children who make me laugh and drive me crazy and make me feel needed. I found a life I never expected, but that fits me perfectly. With him, with that guy from yesterday. His name is David, and yes, with him. With his children. With my family. But Elena, we had 3 years together." 3 years! That has to count for something. It does count for something. It taught me what I don't want. It taught me that time together doesn't mean anything if the person isn't willing to commit when it matters." Elena reached across the table but didn't touch him. "I genuinely hope you find happiness. I hope you figure out what you want and find someone who's right for you. But that person isn't me. Not anymore. So that's it? It's really over?" "It was over the moment you sent that text message. I was just too hurt to realize it at the time." Elena stood up. "Take care of yourself. And next time you love someone, have the courage to show up." She walked out of the cafe feeling like a weight had been lifted. The chapter was closed. That part of her life was truly, finally over. When she got home, David was in the backyard with the twins, teaching them how to play catch. Or trying to. Lucas kept throwing the ball straight up in the air, and Lily was more interested in making daisy chains than playing with the ball. Elena stood at the back door for a moment, just watching them. This was her family. This strange, unexpected, wonderful family that had come together in the most unusual way possible. David noticed her and jogged over, leaving the twins to their own games. "How did it go?" "It went well. I said what I needed to say. I feel free." She wrapped her arms around his waist. "I'm exactly where I want to be." He kissed her forehead. "Good. Because the twins have been asking all day when you were coming home. Apparently I'm not as good at playing Princess Tea Party as you are." Elena laughed. "That's because you keep forgetting to hold your pinky up." "There are rules to tea party pinkies?" "So many rules." Life settled into a new rhythm after that. David and Elena stopped pretending to be just roommates and started actually being a couple. They held hands while watching movies. They kissed goodbye in the mornings. They talked about their days and their dreams and their fears. The twins adjusted beautifully. In fact, Lily announced one morning that she'd always known they would fall in love because that's what happens in all the good stories. David's family was thrilled. His sister kept saying, "I told you so," every chance she got. Elena's family took a bit longer to come around, especially her parents. But even they couldn't deny how happy their daughter was. "I still think you're both crazy," Elena's mother said one Sunday over dinner. "But I suppose sometimes crazy works out." "Thanks, Mom, that's very touching," Elena said with a laugh. "What I mean is, I've never seen you this happy. Not even with before." Her mother squeezed her hand. "These children are lucky to have you. And I think you're lucky to have them too." Elena looked across the table where David was helping Lucas cut his food, while Lily chattered about her day. "I'm very lucky." 3 months later, David came home from work with a nervous energy about him. Elena noticed immediately. "What's going on?" she asked after the twins were in bed. "I have something for you." He pulled a small box from his pocket, and Elena's heart started racing. "Before you panic, this isn't what it looks like. I mean, it is, but also it isn't. Does that make sense?" "Not at all," Elena said, laughing. David opened the box to reveal a beautiful ring, simple but elegant with small diamonds catching the light. "We got married for all the wrong reasons. Or maybe they were the right reasons, but they weren't romantic reasons. We did it at a courthouse with barely anyone there, and you wore a dress you bought the day before, and there was no romance or ceremony or any of the things a wedding should have." "David, let me finish. I want to do it again. The right way this time. I want to properly ask you to marry me, not out of desperation or convenience, but because I love you. Because I want to spend the rest of my life with you. Because you're the best thing that's ever happened to me and these kids." He got down on one knee even though they were already married. "Elena, will you marry me? Again? For real this time?" Elena was crying and laughing at the same time. "Yes, of course, yes." He slipped the ring on her finger, and she pulled him up to kiss him properly. "The twins are going to lose their minds when we tell them," Elena said. "I already told them. Lily helped me pick out the ring, actually. She has very strong opinions about sparkles." "Of course she does." They planned a small ceremony for a month later, just close family and friends in a garden with flowers and sunshine. This time Elena wore a dress she actually loved, not one grabbed in desperation. This time she walked down the aisle with her father, both of them smiling. This time the groom was already standing there waiting for her with no doubts or fears. The twins were the flower girl and ring bearer, just as they'd planned. Lucas took his job very seriously, walking slowly and carefully with the rings. Lily threw petals everywhere with wild enthusiasm, making everyone laugh. When Elena reached the front, David took her hands and whispered, "Thank you for saying yes at the train station." "Thank you for asking," Elena whispered back. The ceremony was beautiful. There were real vows this time, not just legal words but promises from the heart. David promised to always show up, to always choose her, to always make her laugh even when life got hard. Elena promised to love his children as her own, to be his partner in everything, to build a life full of joy and messy chaos and love. When the officiant said, "You may kiss the bride," David did properly this time, while everyone cheered and the twins giggled. At the reception, Elena's best friend Rachel pulled her aside. "Remember when I said you were crazy for marrying a stranger?" "I remember. I was wrong. This is the sanest thing you've ever done." Elena watched David dancing with both twins, one on each foot, all three of them laughing. "Yeah," she agreed. "It really is." That night, after the party was over and the twins were asleep and the house was quiet, Elena and David sat on their back porch watching the stars. "I can't believe a year ago I was sitting at a train station in a wedding dress, thinking my life was over," Elena said. "I can't believe a year ago I was desperate enough to propose to a complete stranger," David replied. "Best desperate decision ever. Best desperate decision ever." Elena leaned her head on his shoulder. "You know what's funny? If he had shown up that day, if the wedding had gone as planned, I would have been miserable eventually. I can see that now. We weren't right for each other, but I would have stayed because I'd committed. I would have convinced myself it was enough." "I'm glad he didn't show up," David said honestly. "Me too, because it led me here to you, to Lily and Lucas, to this family. She looked up at him. I was so broken that day. I thought I'd never be happy again. And now I can't imagine being happier than I am right now. Even though you married a guy who burns toast and makes terrible coffee, especially because of that.
It means I get to teach you things. Oh, really?
And what are you teaching me? That love doesn't always look like what you expect. That sometimes the best things come from the worst moments. That family isn't always about blood or traditional paths. Sometimes it's about finding the people who fit into your life perfectly, even in the most unexpected ways.